Firstly, let's start with where the title comes from. We can find it in chapter 10, where Atticus tells Scout, "Shoot all the blue jays you want if you can hit 'em, but remember it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." Before we get on to mockingbirds, it's worth thinking for a moment about the blue jays, especially because it's kind of surprising that a kind-hearted pacifist like Atticus would suggest shooting any bird. When I read about the blue jay, I found out that they are noisy, bold, aggressive, territorial birds that often kill smaller species. That sounds a bit like Bob Ewell to me. Maybe that's why Atticus is so comfortable in going after him in the courtroom. We don't need to do any research to find out about mockingbirds though. As Scout learns about Atticus's words from Miss Maudie, so does the reader. Scout's fascinated by Atticus's lines because it was the only time I ever heard Atticus say it was a sin to do something, and I asked Miss Maudie about it. "Your father's right," she said. "Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. Sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." So a mockingbird is a symbol of beauty, of peace, of innocence and selflessness, the absolute best of the world around us. And for me, there are quite a few mockingbirds in the book. Firstly, there's Tom Robinson, an innocent man convicted of rape because he offers to help Mayella Ewell out of nothing but kindness and sympathy. Just before the verdict of the trial in chapter 21, Scout recalls how on the day Atticus killed a mad dog in the street back in February, the mockingbirds were still. And it's the chill of the courtroom that takes her back. Now, of course, she realises that Atticus's gun is empty. He cannot win the trial, however good his aim is, such is the prejudice on the jury towards a black man. Tom is the mockingbird, still, vulnerable and entirely helpless. As Mr. Underwood says in chapter 25, Tom Robinson's death is like the senseless slaughter of songbirds by hunters and children. Another mockingbird might be Boo Radley, the reclusive man who saves Jem and Scout from Bob Ewell at the end of the novel. Not only is he selfless in this act, like a mockingbird, but he acts like a bird too, delivering gifts to the children via a hole in a tree. It's almost like dropping off food in a nest. He's a caged bird, not a malevolent phantom. In chapter 28, as the children pass the Radley house on the way to the Halloween pageant, we are told that a solitary mocker poured out his repertoire in blissful unawareness of whose tree he sat in. It's almost as if Boo wants to warn them of the danger to come, but cannot express it to them. After Boo's intervention in saving Jem and Scout, it's decided that the story should be kept quiet. It's not really a lie that Bob Ewell fell on his knife, since metaphorically that's exactly what's happened. His violent vengeance has turned against him. But more than that, Scout realises that if Boo faces trial or media attention, it'd be sort of like shooting a mockingbird, wouldn't it? She's clearly learnt that innocent creatures like Boo should be preserved at all costs. Jem understands the idea too. After Tom's death, he's sitting with Scout on the porch, and when she suggests mashing the roly-poly insect she's been playing with, Jem stops her, insisting instead that she set him out on the back steps. When Scout asks why, Jem responds, "Because they don't bother you." I don't think he's just thinking of mockingbirds, but also of Helen Robinson, who he saw fall to the ground upon hearing the news of Tom's death. Dill describes that moment to Scout as being like a giant foot treading on someone, like you'd step on an ant. A mockingbird has been shot, his powerless wife crushed, and Jem's reaction to the injustice hints that he may follow in his father's footsteps. In the final pages of the novel, Atticus reads The Grey Ghost, Scout's favourite children's story, to her one more time. But now she can fall asleep in the knowledge that she finally understands it. She tells her father that the ghost, or the villain of the story, is essentially misunderstood and innocent. When they finally saw him, why, he hadn't done any of those things. Atticus, he was real nice. Boo, her mockingbird, has taught her a crucial message about prejudice.